Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. We have made it through another week 3 of digital learning, and I hope that you've been enjoying Harry Potter this week, and I hope you've enjoyed the writing lessons and that Envision has been going well. I miss you very much, and I can't believe that it's already April. It boggles my mind every time I see it. So, here we go. We left off where Oliver was giving a speech in the very early morning to the Quidditch players. "So," said Wood, at long last, jerking Harry from a wistful fantasy about what he could be eating for breakfast at this very moment at the castle. "Is that clear? Any questions?" "I've got a question, Oliver," said George, who had just woken with a start. "Why couldn't you have told us all this yesterday when we were awake?" Wood wasn't pleased. "Now, listen here, you lot," he said, glowering at them all. "We should have won the Quidditch Cup last year and were easily the best team, but unfortunately, owing to circumstances beyond our control—" Harry shifted guiltily in his seat. He had been unconscious in the hospital wing for the final match the previous year, meaning that Gryffindor had been a player short and suffered their worst defeat in 300 years. Wood took a moment to regain control of himself. Their last defeat was clearly still torturing him. "So this year, we train harder than ever before. Okay, let's go put our new theories into practice," Wood shouted, seizing his broomstick and leading the way out to the changing rooms. Stiff-legged and still yawning, his team followed. They had been in the changing room so long that the sun was properly up now, although remnants of the mist hung over the grass in the stadium. As Harry walked onto the pitch, he saw Ron and Hermione sitting in the stands. "Aren't you finished yet?" called Ron incredulously. "Haven't even started," said Harry, looking jealously at the toast and marmalade that Ron and Hermione had brought out of the Great Hall. "Wood's been teaching us new moves." He mounted his broomstick and kicked at the ground, soaring up into the air. The cool morning air whipped his face, waking him far more effectively than Wood's long talk. It felt wonderful to be back on the Quidditch pitch. He soared right around the stadium at full speed, racing Fred and George. "What's that funny clicking noise?" called Fred, as they hurtled around the corner. Harry looked into the stands. Colin was sitting in one of the highest seats, his camera raised, taking picture after picture. The sound strangely magnified the deserted stadium. "Look this way, Harry! This way!" he cried shrilly. "Who is that?" said Fred. "No idea," Harry lied, putting on a spurt of speed that took him as far away as possible from Colin. "What's going on?" said Wood, frowning as he skimmed through the air towards them. "Why's that first year taking pictures?" "I don't like it. He could be a Slytherin spy, trying to find out about our new training program." "He's in Gryffindor," said Harry quickly. "And the Slytherins don't need a spy, Oliver," said George. "What makes you say that?" said Wood testily. "Because they're here in person," said George, pointing. Several people in green robes were walking onto the pitch, broomsticks in hands. "Don't believe it!" Wood hissed out in rage. "I booked the pitch for today. We'll see about this." Wood shot towards the ground, landing rather harder than he meant to in his anger, staggering slightly as he dismounted. Harry, Fred, and George followed. "Flint!" Wood bellowed at the Slytherin captain. "This is our practice time. We got up specially. You can clear off now." Marcus Flint was even larger than Wood. He had a look of a trollish cunning on his face, and he replied, "Plenty of room for all of us, Wood." Angelina, Alicia, and Katie had come over, too. There were no girls on the Slytherin team, who stood shoulder to shoulder, facing the Gryffindors, leering to a man. "But I booked the pitch," said Wood, positively spitting with rage. "I booked it!" "Ah," said Flint, "but I've got a specially signed note Hear from Professor Snape. I, Professor Snape, give the Slytherin team permission to practice today on the Quidditch pitch, owing the need to train their new Seeker. You've got a new Seeker? Said Wood, distracted. Where? And from behind the 6 large figures before them came a 7th, smaller boy, smirking all over his pale, pointed face. It was Draco Malfoy. Aren't you Lucius Malfoy's son? Said Fred, looking at Malfoy with dislike. Funny you should mention Draco's father, said Flint as the whole Slytherin team smiled still more broadly. Let me show you the generous gift he's made to the entire Slytherin team. All 7 of them held out their broomsticks. 7 highly polished, brand new handles and 7 sets of fine gold lettering spelled the words Nimbus 2001 gleamed under the Gryffindors' noses in the early morning sun. Very latest model. Only came out last month, said Flint carelessly, flicking a speck of dust from the end of his own. I believe it outstrips the old 2000 series by a considerable amount. As for the old clean sweeps, he smiled nastily at Fred and George, who were both clutching clean sweep 5s. Sweeps the board with them. None of the Gryffindor team could think of anything to say for a moment. Malfoy was smirking so broadly that his cold eyes were reduced to small slits. Oh, look, said Flint, a pitch invasion. Ron and Hermione were crossing the grass to see what was going on. What's happening? Ron asked Harry. Why aren't you playing? And what's he doing here? He was looking at Malfoy, taking in his Slytherin Quidditch robes. I'm the new Slytherin Seeker Weasley, said Malfoy, smugly. Everyone's just been admiring the brooms my father bought our team. Ron gaped, open-mouthed at the 7 superb broomsticks in front of him. Good, aren't they? Said Malfoy smoothly. But perhaps the Gryffindor team will be able to raise some gold and get new brooms, too. You could raffle off those clean sweep 5s. I bet a museum would bid for them. The Slytherin team howled with laughter. At least no one on the Gryffindor team had to buy their way in, said Hermione. They got in on pure talent. The smug look on Malfoy's face flickered. No one asked your opinion, filthy little mudblood, he spat. Harry knew at once that Malfoy had said something really bad, because there was an instant uproar at his words. Flint had to dive in front of Malfoy to stop Fred and George jumping on him. Alicia shrieked, How dare you! And Ron plunged his hand into his robes, pulled out his wand, yelling, You'll pay for that one, Malfoy, and pointed it furiously under Flint's arm at Malfoy's face. A loud bang echoed around the stadium, and a jet of green light shot out the wrong end of Ron's wand, hitting him in the stomach and sending him reeling backwards onto the grass. Ron! Ron, are you all right? Squealed Hermione. Ron opened his mouth to speak. Instead, he gave an almighty belch, and several slugs dribbled out of his mouth onto his lap. Gross. The Slytherin team were paralyzed with laughter. Flint was doubled up, hanging on his new broomstick for support. Malfoy was on all fours, banging the ground with his fist. The Gryffindors were gathered around Ron, who kept belching large, glistening slugs. Nobody seemed to want to touch him. We'd better get him to Hagrid's. It's nearest, said Harry to Hermione, who nodded bravely, and the pair of them pulled Ron by his arms. What happened, Harry? Is he ill? But you can cure him, can't you? Cullen had run in front of his seat and now was dancing alongside them as they left the pitch. Ron gave a huge heave, and more slugs. Oh, no, my computer.